Huh. Okay. Good. Thanks for reminding me. Okay. Now we can get started. Um, so again, I want to welcome everybody this morning. We have a couple of things that we're going to try and get done this morning. First of all, we'll welcome Padma, who's going to give us kind of an update on the work that they're doing. And then we're going to do a little update on the latest federal. I think Randy's going to hopefully be joining us fairly shortly on what's the latest in Washington, what's happening, what's not happening, what we know, what we don't know. Or as I said in my email, the good, bad, and ugly of what's going on in Washington these days. But before we start, a couple of things. So, Jared, I was just saying, welcome back. I haven't seen you in a while. Want to just give people a latest update on what's happening with AZ Strut?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Apologize for not having my camera on. I'm commuting hands-free right now. Um,
Okay.
but but yeah, so I am Jared Bodine. I'm the executive director of AZ Strut. That stands for Arizona Students Recycling Used Technology. We're a nonprofit. We service Arizona, all of Arizona, but only Arizona. We do e-waste recycling for organizations, and then we take what devices are usable from that recycling, and then work with students to get it refurbished, give them some workforce development, and then get those devices back out into the community. Our more broadband type focus is we have an internet lending program. We've worked out with some telecom providers for cellular data for homes, and so we offer low cost and subsidized rates to individuals to help them get online and get their whole home online. These aren't like one user hotspots, they're whole home internet. And we recently relocated from Mesa to Tempe in a larger space. So we've been able to increase our footprint, increase our warehousing capability, and increase our ability to spread out and service more of the community.
It's really amazing how much you guys have grown and the great work that you guys are doing. You've been doing great work for years, but you really have grown and doing all kinds of good stuff. That internet lending program is a great opportunity for people. And so, I'm glad you mentioned it again because I think people need to know about it.
Thank you. Yeah, and there's always room for more. So tell your friends, family, and individuals you work with that we'd love to help anyone. And it works anywhere that someone would have a T-Mobile signal. So we can go anywhere in the continental United States, really, as long as they have a T-Mobile signal. So we can help
Awesome.
anyone anywhere.
Sounds great. Thanks, Jared. Um, Dean, you want to introduce yourself again? I know you were here a couple of weeks ago, I believe, but you want to say hello?
Sure. Yeah. Good morning, all. I'm traveling and Wi-Fi is a little weak, so I'm staying off camera, but good to be here. My name's Dean Duncan, Executive Director of the Connective. We focus right now in Greater Phoenix. We work with cities. Think of us as outsourced IT, outsourced technology. We look at the emerging technologies out there, smart region technologies, help them to find solutions to some of the challenges the cities are trying, our city members are trying to address. Great to be here. Specific to fiber, many of our cities are interested in how do they bolster their fiber, often to their own city, for their own city needs, or to citizens. So that's why I'm here today. Good to be here.
Great. So, Dean, I think I told you
And
I would like to
thank you, Steve.
yeah. So I'd like to schedule a time for you to actually do a more in-depth presentation and also for you to talk more about your experience with the cities that participate with you and the challenges and the issues that they face. So that'd be a
Yeah,
great
glad to.
for
Glad to.
future.
And Chris Lucero and I work together, and he and I are trying to get a day trip down to Tucson. So we'll figure out how to catch up with a few of you there when we're there too.
What's Chris doing these days?
Yeah, so he's joined me. So Chris, for those of you who know Chris Lucero, he's with Intel for many years, retired from there. He's on as a supporting consultant, officially the director of technology and design for the Connective. So he's
Okay,
kind of the technology backbone, leveraging his experience at Intel to into how do we help cities.
cool. So you said you're coming to Tucson? You
Trying to
and
find a date where we can do that. Yes, so we'll keep you
who,
posted.
who are you going to meet with down here?
Still figuring that out. City of Tucson is the primary at this point, and probably University of Arizona, their quantum department. So, City of Tucson CIO office and um, U of A quantum. John, I've forgotten his last name. I'm sorry. He's at the U
That's
of
okay.
A.
It's okay. And do you know Michelle, who's online here, Michelle Simon with Pima County?
Michelle, I'm not sure we've met, but good to meet you, and we'd love to connect when we're down there too, if that would work out for you. How about we'll keep S Steve will work through you, and once we get a date firmed up, we'll uh, we'll work out some time we can meet with some of you. That'd be great.
Cool. Okay, let's go
Thank you,
ahead
Steve.
and I'm sorry. Thanks. Thank you, Dean. We'll definitely find a time to excuse me to have you do a presentation. Okay. So let's just jump into, well, just a couple of things. So, as you know, I'm going to be traveling. It looks like we're going to be heading, the latest plan is that we're going to be heading to Portland in early June. I'm hoping that I will still be able to do our May meeting and maybe not the June meeting. So I'm still kind of trying to finalize all of our plans here, and we'll let you know. And I will be sending out a calendar invite in the meantime. So with that, any questions or comments before we move on? If not, I want to introduce or let her introduce herself. Padma is with a great program and have a great platform for doing a lot of digital inclusion work. And so with that, Padma, I'm going to turn it over to you. And do you have a presentation you want to share?
Yes, please.
Yeah, please just go ahead.
I think you can see my screen.
Yep.
Just launch into a presentation mode. And so I'm using one laptop and I'm unable to see you all. So in case there's some difficulty, just shout out because I'm minimizing. Um, Thank you, Steve, for inviting me to talk about Talaveda and the work that we do. And I appreciate Mala doing the introduction to ACA, and that's how this came about. And I have recently joined Talaveda, and I'm here to talk about the work that we do here. And even though we are a health technology company, I believe we belong in this conversation about broadband infrastructure investment in Arizona. And today I want to talk about something I think everyone in this room cares about, that what actually happens after the fiber gets laid, because broadband infrastructure is only half the equation, and I want to talk about the other half. Talaveda is a social venture health technology company. We serve harder to reach population, and those are older adults, rural residents, adults with disabilities, and tribal veterans. And we address social isolation, loneliness, healthcare disparities among them. And how we do this is by combining human care navigators with a HIPAA compliant platform. And we deliver our social engagement, digital literacy education, wellness programming, care navigation, all through very low tech channels such as phone or any simple devices that the people may already have. And we get our funding from federal contracts and grants, and we work with federal government, such as United Department of Veteran Affairs, HHS, Medicaid agencies, Medicare Advantage plans, and dual eligible special need plans. And here are some of the health plans that we work with. Now, let me get to the heart of why I'm here today. Arizona is making a historic investment in broadband infrastructure, and that investment is absolutely necessary. But infrastructure alone does not produce outcomes. And there are three populations in the state that will remain offline even after the broadband arrives unless we do something different. And these are the tribal veterans. Even though they serve 5 times the national rate, they face the highest PTSD and suicide rates among any veteran groups. And 67% of them do not seek mental health services, not because they don't exist, but because of distance and historical mistrust keep services out of reach. Then we have the rural older adults. And if they are socially isolated, they are not going to reach out for a device that may be provided to them. And social isolation actually, older adults that are socially isolated have a higher rate of like 42% getting admitted to the emergency room. And Medicare spends about $7 billion in a year just taking care of socially isolated people because of the morbidities that they may develop. Then we have the reservation households on tribal lands, and they have the lowest adoption in the nation. Having internet available on tribal lands isn't enough. People need someone they can trust to show them how to use it. Otherwise, the connection just sits there. And that's why Talaveda, we route our services through tribal leaders and veteran services officers they already trust. Let me give you a little more context on why this matters so much economically and medically. Because loneliness is a costly problem. 1 in 4 older adults experiences loneliness or social isolation. And this is not a lifestyle issue, but it becomes a health crisis because then they have 50% increased risk of developing dementia, 68% increased risk of hospitalization, 57% increased risk of ER visits, and even the mortality rates goes up by 26%. And these are largely preventable with the right kind of connection that broadband can enable. So we can get them. And this is why fighting isolation is at the center of everything Talavera does. Social isolation is linked to all these diseases listed on here. Research has shown that all these diseases are linked to social isolation. And even our HHS health secretary said that it's a gateway to substance abuse. So our mission is to intervene before people reach the emergency room. And with the right partnerships like broadband deployment, this intervention can scale across Arizona. So infrastructure is necessary, but it's not sufficient. Adoption is what produces outcomes. And this is where Talavera comes in. It sits in the middle box, the digital adoption box. We provide devices, on-the-ground digital literacy, and the day-to-day reasons people pick up the connection. We provide bingo nights, talking circles, connecting people to community resources, health programming. Now you might say, how does bingo night help? Well, bingo night helps an 82-year-old get excited about getting online. And then she is just 2 clicks away from making an appointment, telehealth appointment with a doctor, 2 clicks away from connecting to her family, grandchildren via a video call. So here is what we have built. We provide connectivity hardware. We have created 22 community digital connection hubs in the tribal lands and rural areas in Arizona. We provide free Starlink kits or low-cost devices and help them set it up. Then we have a program called Cyber Squad, and that gives them, how to use the internet and give them support in plain language. If there's someone who has transportation or inability to attend also, or even use the internet to learn about it, we have community health workers locally that can go to their house and help them set it up. And then we give them a reason to get engaged and use internet or broadband by providing them virtual community programs. And especially with the older adults when they're isolated, they don't feel like going out, we provide them yoga, stress management, and different kinds of programming. And it's all at no cost to the people who join it. We have more than 1,000 people join every week. And then we have AI supported navigation, which connects the VA members to the resources that they request or any health related social needs that they have. We connect them to health, and also we connect them to behavioral health if they need. But there's always a human in the loop, so it can get escalated, and we don't rely only on AI navigation. And then everything is HIPAA compliant, and tribal data sovereignty is built in from day one, and it's not added later. And we measure all of it, because connectivity without outcomes is, just a router collecting dust. So we give out reports to our plans and our clients on how many device deployment, engagement, attendance, session frequency. So they get good reports out of it. Now, this is just what it I'll tell you what it looks like. We have a tribal connectivity project called Roger That with the Arizona Department of Veteran Services. And this is where we were able to connect those community digital engagement hubs. We provide Starlink connectivity packages for tribal nations and veterans. Then we pair it with the benefits, counseling, and then we also provide them an area where they can get together in a safe environment, discuss, have storytelling, which is the traditional healing practice, and provide them virtual community programming. We have 11 signed MOUs with the federally recognized tribes in Arizona, and we are actively in conversation and scoping with the remaining 11. We have already connected over 1,200 at-risk Arizona veterans with employment resources or SDOH resources. We have provided digital literacy to over 10,000 Arizonans through a project with ADHS. And we are very proud to say that we got the first place in the VA Mission Daybreak National Suicide Prevention Competition in 2023. And that had over 1,300 applicants. This is what our team looks like in action when they go to deliver the kits. As they help set it up, they train the people locally. And then another program is Beyond Walls, which really shows what broadband adoption looks like in reality. We connect all the senior centers across the country, and they come and play bingo, which is offered 3 times in a time zone, and they can also attend the cyber squad. And these are really older people who have not used digital devices or connectivity. So it's good for them. We also provide brain games that keeps them mentally agile. And it really matters, I think, because broadband we provide to users to use it. And this is a great way of measuring, or demonstrating how digital adoption looks like in reality. And this, you can see the happy faces here of all the bingo palooza across the country in different sites. And they win prizes. We give them prizes. And this is the one that we are very proud of, our Mission Daybreak. It's a suicide prevention for Native Americans. And it is the country's first culturally specific evidence-informed approach. It's built upon 3 pillars: building relationships and trust. So we always hire the tribal leaders or the tribal veteran commanders on the nation to facilitate these talking circles. So for the suicide prevention, we have these virtual talking circles, and they are peer support services and trauma-informed facilitation, which creates a safe environment for the veterans to share their stories. And often it's the first time that they're sharing their story because they trust that, and then they go and seek the mental health. So it's kind of a gateway. And you can see how one veteran put it very simply: veteran helping veterans have been most effective form of support. And these circles give us space to discuss our military experiences in ways that family and friends may not fully understand. So Native nations know their traditional practices work. Our role is simply to design technology that meets them where they are and to build the evidence base that makes these practices reimbursable. And we are currently working with the Lakota Nation on research using the mixed method design. If you all have heard about the two-eyed method, which is respecting the indigenous worldviews along with the Western standards. And Televida is not a broadband provider, and we are the layer that makes the connection useful once it arrives. Televida turns connectivity into measurable engagement, creating community engagement hubs. And we are already a trusted partner with 11 tribes in Arizona. We can have the tribal outreach. Our programming closes the last 6 inches between the router and the person. So we can help with the adoption gap. And we invest locally by hiring the workforce within the community. So the investment stays in the community. So here's my ask, 3 concrete ways we can work together as adoption partners and or institute programming or digital outcomes engine. We have the measurement infrastructure structure to show data what a BEAD investment would actually be producing. So that's a story Arizona needs to be able to tell, and I welcome you to connect with me if you think we could partner on this. I can take questions.
Great. Good presentation. Questions for Padma? Discussion? Go ahead, Kelly.
Padma, thank you so much. My name is Kelly Mukherjee from ASU's Enterprise Technology. I lead a program called AZ1. I would love to connect with you so we could partner. I definitely think there is overlap. Thank you so much for sharing your presentation. I am blown away by what your organization is doing. I think we can help with storytelling. That is what AZ1 specializes in, is community impact storytelling. You've got a lot of rich stories to share. I think I'm curious. My question is, can you paint me a picture of, how big is your organization? What does it look like? Who is doing the digital navigation to make all of this possible? If you can paint me a picture of the organization, please.
We started in 2018 because the founders, they had, they were touched by isolation. Their grandfather had Alzheimer's and very socially isolated, and they didn't want it. So even though it's a for-profit, they use that model works for them because it helps them stay sustainable. Because the grants one, it started in 2018. There are 2 founders. One of them does the software programming. So he develops the platform, and then they have a team. I believe they have 25 employees. I recently joined them. Digital navigation, they have clinician who graduated from Harvard. I know he helps them with the trauma-informed curriculum. Then we have native peer support service specialist who actually conducted. We have developed a 6-week curriculum called Project Hoser, which trains the facilitators, the tribal facilitator, or people they trust, the tribes trust, into the curriculum. And then some of them speak the language. So it's really creating that very informed, and a safe environment for them to share, because as an outsider, we can't come and conduct it and have them open. And then what happens is we try to do the talking circles on the native land itself, but we also have our Janice, she's from the Hopi tribe. She launches the virtual talking circle because a lot of time some tribal member may not be able to attend, or the distance is a long way, so they can attend virtually. We also work with military sexual trauma victims. And what we have noticed is that the women veterans don't like to come in person. They prefer the virtual environment. And because they have been traumatized, they will not come to the 6-week curriculum. So now we have changed it. They can drop in as they feel safe, and they can dictate and control when they can come in. So I'd love to have that conversation and you can relate our story.
Thank you so much.
I
I'm
hope
so
I answered
excited.
your question.
Thank you. I can't wait to follow up with you.
They definitely serve a population that we have not had a lot of focus on. It certainly, I mean, we've generally talked about those kinds of needs, but not, I don't believe as specifically as what she's been talking about. Other questions or
I had,
comments? I'm sorry,
yeah,
go
I
ahead.
had a conversation with Padma and Mayank, I think it was Mayank Mishra,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, from Televeda just last week, and we spoke about partnering with our libraries and how we can support what they do, because again, libraries are trusted places, they're community hubs, and there are places where they can they have internet access, connectivity devices. They loan hotspots, and I think in a recent conversation, I, in fact, suggested that Padma contact AZ Strut to seek partnership with them as well, because not all our libraries loan hotspots or devices, and many a time the rural folks are using the internet on their little phones and trying to connect with people on the phones. Not that that's not possible or wrong, but it's nicer to have a large screen, especially if you are older and have the tiny screen makes it difficult for you to read anything, those kind of things. So partnering with AZ Strut will also take this much further. I think Anthony is here. Yeah, Anthony is helping me with some of the. I think we're working together actually on a lot of health related projects at the state library. So I'm so glad that Anthony was here to listen to your presentation, Padma, because we can together take it further than it is going now. You're doing great service. And I heard from you about the Maha Elevate program. I know
Yes.
you didn't talk about it, but do you want to say a couple of sentences about that program? If you
Yes. So, yeah,
could,
sure,
yeah.
I can. So Maha Elevate is Make America Healthy Again. And CMS is trying to see they're focusing on prevention and trying to do a study and see what interventions can help with prevention of a disease. So we have picked up physical activity, which is not reimbursable currently by Medicare, because exercise is not paid for on a lot of different things, stress management. So we reached out to library if we could partner with them. We have reached out to U of A. They're partnering with them for the few clinics. We need a minimum of 2,000 Medicare beneficiaries. So that's something we are trying to reach out and see how we can use technology for prevention of chronic diseases. So we wanted letter of support from the state library to be able to create a hub there where people could come and, do different things, some innovation that we are doing. It's
Go
anyone
ahead,
wants to
Michelle.
partner with
I'm
us
sorry.
on that, let me know.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Good morning. Thank you, everybody. Michelle Simon. I'm the director of Pima County's Office of Digital Inclusion. Padma, you and I have spoke previously, and I think it's important to note I've been working with the health department on their community health improvement plan that they are working on and the strategies related to that. And a lot of it has to do with healthy aging in place activities, as well as making sure our rural community members are connected. So I have actually provided them with information about Televeda multiple times. And I do, with all of the things that we have going on, we have a broadband gap and feasibility study happening right now. And we were just licensed through AARP for Senior Planet and the OATS curriculum to use there. So I definitely want to find a way that we can incorporate the work that is happening with Televata into the activities that are happening in Pima County. So let's talk again.
And I am in Tucson. I live in Oro Valley, so I'll be able to meet you in person.
That's perfect. Thank you.
I'll email you.
Padma, do you have any ties with the Arizona telemedicine program?
No.
The Arizona telemedicine program
What a
is
great
one of
idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Pardon?
What a great
Many of
idea.
our libraries are TAP libraries, the Arizona Access Points, telehealth access points. And these are through a partnership with the Southwest Telehealth Resource Center. So certainly, Padma, when we have the next conversation, I will put you in touch with the representative. I don't know if she's here today.
No, I don't see. I don't think
Okay.
Melanie's here today. But
Yeah. Okay. I'll do that. Thank you for reminding me, Steve.
yeah, just as a note, Padma, the Arizona telemedicine program is one of the top telemedicine programs, if not the top telemedicine program in the country. They've been doing awesome work for many, 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 many years. They're associated with the University of Arizona. So
Yeah.
usually Melanie is here with us, but she's not here this morning. Dave?
Yeah, just real quickly, I appreciate a great deal what you're doing. My family, currently, I have two family members that still work with the tribes. One is doing technology with Yaqui, and my nephew is the Deputy Natural Resource Manager, I think is his title for the TO. So, but in my academic career, I started out in cultural anthropology, and I think that there's some value in looking back, building the relationships. It's a process, and I think that in the big picture, and this is something that you and I can talk about probably in person, since I'm near Tucson. But a lot of tribal culture is very deeply held, and so there are people inside the tribe that don't have access to a lot. So it's an amazing world, but you bring up the concept of feeling safe, and I understand that 100%. You will get the stories of people in an environment where they feel safe. But as a general rule, the postmodernism that you find on our college campuses does not blend well with Native culture. And we've tended to adopt the Una-Indian theory that if you speak to one tribe, you've spoken to them all, and if you've taken the time here, that you somehow understand Native culture. So I'll put my information here. If you want to reach out, I'd love to meet with you, share with you what I know. I might still have some of my old research papers from some personal interviews that were done in 1980. My advice to anybody you're sending to work with the tribes is spend a few months researching before you even make the contact, and old libraries, old courthouses are great resources. Some of the early 1900s, when some of these people actually, without written language, they orally told those stories. There's recordings of a lot of that history that has just been untapped for years. So I'll put my contact information if you want any other advice from an old guy going back to around 1980. Man, it's a great investment in time and amazing people.
We are working with 46 tribes across the country. So we have inroads and we have trust.
It's a start. You have, I think, 500 more. And I think the last I heard, there were 11 tribes petitioning for separate standing with the government. And so they are not all the same. And as a quick word of advice to anyone going, the one Native person that everybody knows is Sitting Bull. He was not universally loved by Native people. He was, in fact, even inside of Lakota people. It's very touchy in his history. So I had a professor, and I'll leave you with this. And he told me this to try to, I had to decide to whether I wanted to pursue a PhD in anthropology and do that. And he said, and he was very old school. And he said, Dave, the problem is the discipline is rapidly becoming dominated by glorified folklorists telling just so stories of exotic people. And if you unpack, I didn't know what a just so story was. I had to look it up. But what we have now in postmodern universities is a whole lot of stories. They don't necessarily line up. And I'd love to explore it further with you and really applaud what you're doing. And like I said, my brother is working for what it's worth in technology with Yaki, and he has for like 30 years, databases and stuff like that. And my nephew is currently employed by TO. So I'll put my contact information here in the chat, and contact me anytime.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be able to come here. Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Mala, for making this possible.
Yeah, Aaron, you had your hand up earlier. Did you still want to say something?
Well, not adding anything that you probably don't know, but just highlighting too that at least, for the local connections, if you need any, the Arizona Commerce Authority does have a tribal liaison who is a very wonderful person. Happy to introduce you to her if you'd like, if you're not already connected to Oksana. And then just highlighting again too that the state library, of course, also has a tribal liaison. I'm sure you're already connected there. And I just wanted to point you towards the chat. I private messaged you. I just wanted to make sure you saw it.
Well, I didn't yet.
No worries.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Aaron, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to talk to her about ACA. And of course, well, he's got other responsibilities, but EJ John at the governor's office also works a lot with the tribes also. And so we don't see him very often these days, but he is certainly a great resource also. Okay, anything else for Padma before we move on? Jared, and maybe I've probably discussed this with you before, but I'm wondering what your relationships are with the school districts. And I think Michelle, is Michelle still here? It looks like she may be gone. But my question is that we know that the school districts have great challenges in trying to do distribution of devices and the management and support and so forth. And at least in my opinion, that being able to have relationships with organizations like yours would be a great benefit to the school districts that just can't do it on their own. Just wonder if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, absolutely. We obviously, that's one of our big focuses, is partnering with schools and school districts. I can tell you that we have a pretty consistent ongoing one with Cartwright School District. We're actually getting another 400 or so devices ready to be shipped out to them today. I think by the end of the year, we'll probably brought over nearly 1,000 devices to that school district alone this year. We can't always meet all the needs of every school district across the state, but we certainly are always asking for where we can be of help the most and trying to meet those needs where the students are.
Okay, thank you, Jared.
Thank you.
Okay, Lucy, you got anything you want to share this morning?
Just that I have been off grid for a little bit, so it's good to see everybody. And the last live that we did was with Kelly Mukherjee, and it is on YouTube, and I'll put the link in here. And I really loved it because it was the first time that we actually used the platform with why I wanted to use it, which is give opportunity for students to be professionally presented. I don't know, Kelly, if you want to speak to that last live that we did together.
Well, thank you, Lucy, for giving us that opportunity. We had a panel of 3 students, and they are actually all graduating. So Lucy happened to catch them just in the nick of time before our students graduate from their degrees this year. So thank you.
And so we'll do the next live on the first Thursday of May. And so feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my stuff in here, and I'm putting the playlist for the broadband, which what's next in technology. And I think what our next episode is probably going to feature Ken from Senior AARP and OATS program so that we can hyper focus about seniors. And so let me know if you want to be involved.
Okay. Thank you, Lucy. So I don't know what happened to Randy this morning. He's not here. Mark, do you want to just do do your own dog and pony, just a little bit about what's the latest in Washington that changes from day to day, I guess, but
Sure. There is some breaking news on universal service that should be of interest to this group. And so let me bring up something I was looking at that has the direct information. So at the Energy and Commerce Subcommittee, the chairman, Richard Hudson, uh, has said that he's been having bipartisan negotiations and talk, and they aim to release draft regulations to reform the Universal Service Fund by the end of May. Now, we've been waiting years, I think, now for, some solid action on Universal Service Fund. That doesn't say what it is or will be, but there seems to be some motion there. So connected to that, Shelby has launched a task force with a group called Keep Our Communities Connected, to study and recommend on the future of the Universal Service Fund. Mala, have you been involved or monitoring that directly?
Yes, I am.
You have
And
comments? Yes.
I did put a link in the chat on Wednesday, this upcoming May 6th at 11 a.m. We have a Shelby webinar on defending the USF and on the latest and the greatest in the USF world. For those of you who are new to this, USF is the Universal Service Fund, where we have contributions from the telecommunications companies. They pay a percentage of the interstate end user revenues to this fund, and they contribute to it based on, only the companies that are selling, I should say, or service providers for the long distance and landline phones are contributing to this. So as you know, that's a shrinking market. So the contribution factor has been steadily increasing. Last quarter, it was 37%. The upcoming quarter, it's likely to go down to 35%, but in any case, it is a lot that they are contributing to this, and many organizations that have joined Shelby, Schools, Health, and Libraries Broadband Coalition, are working towards rationalizing the contribution and widening the base for the contribution. So that's what Mark was referring to.
I just put a link into the chat for an announcement from the Keep Our Communities Connected partner for Shelby on that. So good to see that action. At the FCC, they're also undertaking reviews and possible action in what's called high cost service, which is a subsidy program for providers that want to deploy generally traditional landlines in high cost areas. But also I've seen that they're going to look for comments on the Lifeline program, another kind of consumer support program shortly. So some action across the board at the FCC. Let's see, what else? In the satellite world, I think we already talked that Amazon Leo buying Global Star for $11 million will give them their entry into what's called direct-to-device services. So Amazon Leo is a head-to-head broadband competitor with Starlink, but cell phones that can talk to satellites, that's called direct-to-device and other things. And so Amazon's making a play to activate that. They've also just reaffirmed that they intend to launch service, Amazon Leo broadband service, in mid 2026, but there's some skepticism around that. They only have 240 satellites in orbit currently. Starlink didn't launch any service until they had 900 satellites, and even then there were gaps. So Amazon Leo is in the hunt to start offering services. So maybe by late this year, we'll see a head-to-head competitor. Um, and I attended two conferences this week. The Tech Council had their Smart City and Digital Transformation Conference. Dean Duncan mentioned Chris Lucero, now on board at the Connective. He chaired a panel there. There was actually a very interesting panel of police sergeants and captains on, and someone from Axon, formerly the taser and video monitoring company, talking about how they're using it in crime stopping. They're launching drones the minute they get 911 calls, for example, in Scottsdale, and getting views to the officers coming onto the scene in advance. They're finding perps that are fleeing and other things, but there was also, as part of that, interesting discussion about privacy and transparency, and they all swore that they were doing their absolute best in those regards to preserve consumer privacy, such as deleting license plate scans on a 30-day or so basis and other factors. But interesting discussion with law enforcement at that conference. Yesterday, I was at a Arizona space conference called Space Rising, and some came from out of the area, but also you could see a lot of the Arizona action on board. We are aiming towards a couple of spaceports. These are launch sites. It looks like both Yuma and Sierra Vista are in the hunt to develop commercial capable spaceports for launch in Arizona. Lots of other interesting stuff during the day at the Space Congress, Space Rising, but you could see the energy workforce development in that arena was a big issue that took part of the day. And let's see. I think that's all I have offhand. Maybe someone else has things or questions.
I'd like to add to what Mark has said about some FCC updates. FCC's, and that would really interest this group and the service providers. FCC is reducing the barriers to network improvements. So with BEAD coming on board, and several old networks, including the copper networks that need to be retired, there were rules about filing to make those changes happen, and getting approvals from FCC. Now, FCC very recently, as of February, as of the 20th of April, they have adopted a rule to reduce the regulatory barriers, and that would hinder the transition from the outdated legacy networks to the newer networks that BEAD could provide. So that is one that I wanted to let you know. And also NTIA, I don't know if you've looked at this, Mark. NTIA has launched a broadband funding guide, a federal broadband funding guide. I'll put the link in the net
I
in
haven't
the chat.
seen that.
Okay, and that has about 14 federal agencies and almost 80 federal funding programs that it's a one-stop shop for broadband resources. And for those who have some but not all of the funding through the BEAD programs, this would help
And who put that
address
out? Was that GAO or
NTIA.
NTIA? Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Let me put that in the chat, and here you go. Okay.
And I also put sorry, go ahead, continue, Mala. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to say it is really comprehensive and worth taking a look, worth bookmarking, especially if we are applying for other grants. This is a good thing to know that there are funding available in different areas from different federal agencies. Go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
Sure. One more thing, I put a link in the chat for a press organization study on media fatigue, trust, and misinformation. I found pretty interesting. Maybe some of you will too.
I had a meeting with Dr. Carmona, the U.S. Surgeon General, and the misinformation is there's a Surgeon General's report. It's like that level of epidemic out there. So that's
Right.
interesting. And then the other thing I just want to mention really quickly, Mark, as you mentioned it, the space, right, is very interesting. We actually own the trademark Marstronaut. And we are developing 3 legs of workforce development. So, kind of pre-healthcare workforce development is the healthcare accelerator. The middle accelerator for science, STEM, and STEAM, we're actually wrapping up in our Marstronaut program. And so the Marstronaut program is kind of like all the sciences of what it would take to be a good human on Earth and also get into the space. So any contacts over there that you may think it would be good for me to know from our
Sure,
would
be glad
awesome.
to. Why don't you send me a little quick email and
Yeah,
I'll
perfect.
send
And then
you
I
back.
need to get with you offline on a couple different things. But
Great. One interesting thing I found at the Space Congress uh, was in Arizona. Strength in automated mining seems to be something that in space, both asteroid and lunar, and eventually Martian mining, they don't really want humans out there and, driving trucks and moving stuff. And all the progress in Arizona in automated mining is being looked at as uh, insight and influence to extraterrestrial mining on, again, asteroids and the moon. The moon is particularly difficult because it's covered in a fine dust that's like ground glass, and it gets into everything and makes uh, machinery design extremely difficult. The rovers that go to the moon have to be substantially hardened and designed for that. But a lot of interest in mining. Some good discussions about orbital data centers. Steve, the guy I've mentioned, Jim Cantrell of Phantom Space, and his CEO of his company were both on panels yesterday, and um, they're making Phantom Space is making new rockets and expects them to launch. Yuma, they're hoping will be their primary launch site for their rockets. So interesting day. But also, as I told you, I'm going to need to drop off here in just a minute, Steve, and go to an appointment.
Sure. Well, we're about done anyway, Mark. Just FYI, I did leave a message for Jim Cantrell last week. Oh, guess he's already gone. Anthony, you have anything you want to update us on?
Hi, Steve. This is Anthony Costantini, digital inclusion consultant. Nothing real to update. I just wanted to say I really enjoyed Padma's presentation, and thank you, Mala, for looping me in on that. I'm looking forward to working more on Talavera. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sounds good. Anybody have anything else for the good of the order before we
My very
Oh, I
last
did.
question before anybody gets lost. Is anybody working on the rural health transformation grant on this? We got Aaron and got Kelly. If
And
are there any
Would love to.
any any
and me.
rural counties on this call that are looking for resources as they submit? Zero. Okay. I anyways, it just seems like there could be a tiny bit more. There's a lot of dollars coming down for that, right? And Padma, did
Right.
you get the Maha Elevate grant? Because I thought they closed it out and it still
Yeah, but
wasn't open.
you had to submit a letter of intent, and if you didn't do it, then the door is closed. We did.
Oh, okay, got it. So it hasn't been selected, but you're in the process of. I'd love to reach out to you. I think we've got some
Sure. Yeah,
interesting,
yeah,
cool
please
things that.
do because
Yeah.
yeah, reach out to
Okay.
me
And
because
I love
it's
that
due
you're
on the
down the street
15th.
in Oro Valley.
Okay.
I think May 15th is the deadline, Padma.
Yeah, but I need to upload because it's in grants.gov and there can be many a slip.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
are a whole lot of issues with that site.
Yes.
Yes.
So Dave
Yeah.
and then Randy, I see you joined us a little late today.
Yes, so I apologize for my lateness here.
Not a problem. Dave, go ahead, and then I'll turn it over to
Back
Randy here.
going back 15 or 20 years, when I was spending a lot of time down in Tubec and Santa Cruz, there were a lot of rural grants that were administered through the Department of Agriculture that I was unaware of. In fact, there was a grant to get driving simulators to train truck drivers. So I don't know if all of you are in touch with them, but they had a fairly obscure list of grants for a wide range of things. If that's of any use.
Well, USDA, if I remember correctly, Randy, you can maybe correct me if I'm wrong. USDA has either got funding or is almost going to get funding for
Yes.
the Rural Connect program.
Yeah,
And
no,
so,
it's a huge thing. They came up with, I think the USDA as an entity came up with a budget a couple weeks ago that excluded a lot of their broadband programs, and then just in the last few days, yeah, I'm not sure where it was a House committee, but someone kind of re-injected funding for for Reconnect, so that looks like that's you know on included now, which is phenomenal. And I'm not sure if there are some of their other related programs like technical assistance and so forth are also included, but we'll find out. But that was a huge milestone. And I think it also acknowledges that there's going to be stuff left after Bede.
yeah, I'm working on getting somebody to talk from USDA more specifically on what's happening with the USDA because it looks like they're getting funding that when nobody else is.
Right, right, absolutely.
They did have a shocking amount of money in the early 2000s in many grants. They were even approaching us saying we have this money to give away for economic development post 9/11 and stuff. So yeah, they do seem to have a big bag of money.
Yeah. Okay, so Randy, do you want to do a quickie update? I know a lot of folks have dropped off already this morning, but
You bet, you bet.
do a quickie short.
So let's see. I dropped a couple things in the notes. One thing that's coming up is, with the USF, there's been discussion of both the rate and also it's a it's a such a and funding sources and so forth. But one thing that I think I announced a couple weeks ago is there's a webinar that Shelby is putting on that basically talks about some of the litigation associated with just the legitimacy of funding USF and kind of keeping it going. So that is next Wednesday. So that's something that it should be very worthwhile for anyone who's interested. Also, was a whole bunch of House bills, sort of less consequential House bills that got passed this past week, and there's an article on that. And then let's see, there are. Let me just look at my my notes here. I've got one or two other items. The let's see the you know the there's a piece on sort of market competition in the marketplace, which is where the Office of Economic and Analytics of the FCC is seeking comment, and then also there is a proposed NPRM on Lifeline, and basically it's a set of technical changes, but it's stuff that if you're interested in tracking those programs is worth looking at, and I'll drop those links in the chat as well.
And I did include that in my newsletter
Oh,
about
okay,
that.
okay, sorry about that. Okay,
Oh,
yeah,
no problem.
yeah,
So we did talk a little bit, Randy, before you joined about USL, but I
okay.
just want to emphasize how important that program is. And of course, Mala keeps us up to date pretty regularly about that program and what's happening. But it really is very important, particularly as we talk about being able to get schools and libraries connected, but telehealth and so forth. So we really need to pay attention to what's happening with the USF. And we've talked about it, God knows how many times over the past year, and it's ups and downs and support and no support and so forth. But it seems to be, and Malik, and maybe you address this, and seems to be that there is support for continuing the program just in a different way, and particularly the funding mechanism for Universal Service Fund. Am I correct? And Randy, am I correct in that?
Yeah, I think the sentiment's very, very high, and I think the one complaint is if you have a telephone line, the overhead that's being applied is huge. So the funding mechanism, I think is probably the one piece that gets has different opinions, and sort of how do you broaden that as well as a question.
Yeah. It doesn't seem to be, and again, uh, you guys follow this more than I do, but there doesn't seem to be any sentiment to not liking the E-rate funds and telemedicine and all the programs that are funded by USF. It's mostly the funding mechanism. Is that correct?
I I think that's the case, and I think there's also a tiny bit of tension between do you provide capital upfront for new infrastructure, or do you fund it on a recurring basis? But I think with rural, in fact, I've been working on a little study in with the um, other organizations where we're just sort of looking at what are the needs of very rural providers, and I think there are a lot out there that if you withdrew USF, they'd be in trouble.
Okay.
That's correct. That is the high cost program. That is one of the 4 programs that USF funds. And the high cost program does not fund the schools or libraries or the community, but it funds the service providers to provide, to provide them with support to go into the rural areas and support them for the capex expenses. So that is also in jeopardy if USF funds are in jeopardy.
So actually, Mala, I'm glad you brought that up because I was a little confused. I was seeing some broadband breakfast emails the last few days, and I'm a little confused about the high cost programs. USF is not a part of that, is it? Is that a separate?
No, it is. It is funded through the USF. It's
Okay.
partly, yes, the USF funding funds, of course, E-rate, Lifeline, and all of those funding programs, but it also funds the service providers to encourage them to go into the rural areas where the capex would be huge, for them. And now, of course, there's been a lot of discussions, and you can see there's a Benton study on this as well, where John Windhausen, the former chair of Shelby, actually did a study and has recommended some of the things that we could do to use BEAD funds better. And one of the things he suggests is make it sustainable. Make there's sustain because it's not just the capex. You're going to have to you put the lines down, but afterwards you need funding to sustain the maintenance of it, and you need funding for organizations. Schools and libraries will get it through the E-rate program, but what about the residents, in that area? So for broad, and as Padma mentioned, just having that fiber down is not going to help. You need adoption. And we still don't have any idea what they're going to do about any guidelines about the non-deployment funds that was allocated, which is almost, for Arizona, $500,000. It's $446 million. It's about $500,000,000 that we would get in Arizona if they approve the guidelines and let us use the non-deployment funding for adoption and sustaining it.
Mala, can you explain, like when you have the BEAD program reaching all these hard to reach rural areas with broadband, what is the high cost program? What is it serving beyond BEAD? Is it for telephone services, or what is it serving? Why do you need it when you have the BEAD program?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because this was before the BEAD program came into existence, right? Yes, USF was subsidizing the cost of going out into the rural areas. Even now, when in the BEAD plan, you would see that there are a lot of areas that are really so high cost that they are trying to use satellites instead of putting fiber down. Correct. And there are pros and cons about using satellite to connect, but also not just connect them, but you have to sustain them on an ongoing basis. So if you use BEAD funds to connect those rural areas via satellite, how are you going to sustain this? Is BEAD going to fund year after year the maintenance or the ongoing internet costs in those areas? Or are they going to subsidize the satellite companies to not charge of these rural areas for their internet? And those are the things that are in that Benton report that I was talking about, which sorry, I didn't pick up that link. I just remember reading it because of the conversation. It brought it up to the discussion. So there is a Benton report. If you search for that and John Windhausen, you should be able to find it.
And I think Mala, isn't John was sort of putting out those ideas initially, but it's still formative, I think, right?
It is very much. And all of those, talking about sustaining, talking about adoption, talking about not talking about AI and the rules that states are following, but come on, let's have the rules and let's have the guidelines. We need it. We need to work on the plans that we, maybe it's 2 or 3 years. Erin would know better she was in charge of that part of the program. Erin, when you were at ACA, the non-deployment and the digital skills and digital inclusion part of it. Unless we get the guidelines from NTIA, we're not going to be able to use those funds or even come up with a plan to use those funds. And it's 2-3 years now since that plan was written.
One thing we've discovered, obviously, is everybody, well, we've got BEAD, it's going to solve everything. Well,
no.
Guess what? not even close, right?
No. So to answer Henry's question, yes, we still need, USF to get into those areas for fiber if we have funds left over after connecting the other areas. I mean, I don't know what the priority is going to be with ACA on who they connect first and who goes next, and whether satellites are sustainable or not.
It seems to be a bit confusing because I think I heard the NTIA or Trump administration make comments like the BEAD couldn't be used to support operating costs and things like that, right? So
yes.
Now
Yes.
the idea here is that they're saying this previous high cost program that existed before BEAD should be considered for supporting operating costs in these high cost areas, is what you're saying, as I understand it.
Right.
So needs to be more clarification of the need for that and how much funding should be put into that and so on.
Yeah,
So,
I think Henry, I think you're hitting the nail on the
Yes,
head. That's one of the
absolutely.
debates is that, I
Yes.
know there's a view within the NTIA that that is sort of double dipping if they get funded, to build out and then get OpEx funding. And there's some argument to that. But I guess I think his model is saying that the high cost goes back a lot of years and it funds all sorts of operators. And so it's even though it's beat is now arriving, it's something that's different than beat. Also with other programs, you have things like CAF2 and RDOF and others that have just sort of paid a recurring amount per month for a decade, sort of as a model, as opposed to paying capital up front. And with like with fiber, it's very capital intensive and sort of the capital model sort of makes sense. But in a lot of other technologies, like with wireless, it's much more, there's some capital, but it's also a lot of recurring costs. So that's the debate of structurally, which is the better model and why.
Right. Right.
mhm.
So,
It's not
Jared,
hard to
going
pull
back to
um, follow.
conversations we were having earlier about AZ Strut, and what are you, can you do more in rural communities? Is a part of the restriction limiting this funding, or just not your bailiwick, or what's your footprint? How would you like to serve more in the rural communities?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up because that has been something I've been wanting to increase. And we do have some rural communities we're working with, like we go to Nogales, Arizona, on occasion and have some collection bins there. For the digital inclusion part of the broadband part, we're limited by where T-Mobile has a signal. I mean, that just is what it is. But for the other aspects like device distribution and educational programming, really, when we have someone requesting it, we see where we can find some budget to make it happen, and we try and get out there and do it. So a lot of it is probably outreach. We don't get as many requests for the more rural areas, but we certainly are happy to try and make better inroads there when possible.
But it seems to me that the internet program could be a great thing for rural communities. I mean, while we're talking about BEAD and all this other stuff, that I mean, I assume that T-Mobile has a pretty broad footprint around the state, unless I'm mistaken. So it seems like that's a real opportunity, but obviously there's a lot of challenges trying to be able to serve those other communities for you. But it seems like from a cost perspective, that would be a great opportunity to expand broadband in rural communities.
Yeah, and it's easy for us to deploy because we don't have to physically go out to those rural communities. We can mail them the internet gateway ready to go, pre-configured. All they have to do is plug it into power and they're online. It's really that simple. So it's very easy for us to service anyone, again, as long as they have that cellular signal. But I found that for whatever reason, maybe it's because we're viewed as the centrally located. Sometimes some people in the rural communities are maybe somewhat suspicious or less trusting of the Central Valley area. But we're still here trying to help anyone we can and getting word out. And once we get a few, I think maybe they'll tell their neighbors and it'll help increase the awareness of it.
Well, there are, a number of rural organizations that are out there. Actually, I think there's a rural conference coming up. Aaron, you probably know, isn't there an Arizona rural conference coming up pretty soon?
There's the Rural STEM Summit that happens in like August or September-ish. Is that the one you mean or a different one?
No, there's
Oh,
the Arizona Rural Association
oh,
conference, I believe.
maybe. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know that one.
But but now that you mentioned the STEM initiative, so that could be a good organization for you, Jared, if you don't have any connection with them, because they do have outreach in communities throughout the state.
Yeah, that's a great avenue. I'm also trying to get more inroads with library associations in general, and seeing if, I'm still talking about this with my team, but I'm thinking of trying to see if we can work with libraries to do more of a device distribution, to help increase awareness.
We know somebody with the library that might be able to help you.
Maybe one or two. We'll talk more.
Okay. Anybody have anything else for the good of the order? Dave, you have your hand up.
Real quick, Jared, is there any specific technology that you're looking for to recycle, and do you have an age limit? How old machines are you?
Well,
You're
thank
going
you
to
for
get a pretty good
asking.
time.
Because we have multiple pillars, one of our pillars is just e-waste responsibility in general. So we'll take all consumer technology, working or not, and industrial technology as well. So server racks and that kind of stuff. There is no age limit. If it's not reusable, we responsibly recycle it. So when in doubt, we'll probably take it.
Very good. And I just probably 10 to 15 years ago, Cox Communications dumped a bunch of older machines down here in the Green Valley area. So you may contact Cox. They had a big closet of kind of semi-obsolete tech. You might want to reach out to them
Okay,
and
good.
and are they teaching younger people how to repurpose a lot of these machines to Linux? Because a lot of those older machines will run Linux very well.
It's funny that you mentioned that. Linux is one of the primary operating systems we use on a lot of these distributions. The Cartwright School District computers are all going to be Linux machines.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, some of my old Apple machines, old Intel Apple machines here, you'd probably be welcome. I have them in a closet, so they're in various states of repair, but the old Intel machines would still run Linux really well.
Yeah, in fact, that's one of the initiatives we've been working on is salvaging great Mac hardware that just Apple decided planned obsolescence, but the software, Linux software on it would run fantastic on that hardware. So that's exactly what we're doing.
Well, on the collector market, your iPod collection back there is worth probably $1.5 million.
Yeah,
Right? It's so good.
we'll never know though, because I'm not selling it.
No. Well, actually, somewhere in my collection, I have an original Apple Newton with the box and the manual. I have
That's
no idea
cool.
what I'm going to do with it, but somebody should put it on a shelf somewhere.
Okay, I think we're done for today, folks. Oh, we're way past our ending time. So I'm going to stop recording. If anybody still wants to continue chatting for a while, I'll stay online for a few minutes. And if not, we're done for today.